So sound and articulation. I studied classical clarinet for a long time before I started getting into playing jazz on the clarinet, and I do a few things differently from some people, but I also have a few kind of I wouldn't say tricks, but kind of ideas for getting the kind of sound that I want on the clarinet, because in like classical technique, I think I would want to have a different sound than I usually use to play jazz. I use the exact same mouthpiece and reed and ligature setup that I used to use when I was playing classical music. I use a Van Doren B46. I guess I used to use a B45 when I played classical music, but it's not that different. And I use a Van Doren Optimum ligature, which is really good. It really holds the reed down well, and it's very adjustable. So I like it. It's consistent. It's pricey for what it is, but you can find them secondhand sometimes, or you can just sprint for it, and it's very durable and will last for a long time. So that's always a good thing. And I use Van Doren reeds, usually a 3 or a 3.5 on that mouthpiece, which is not very resistant compared to what other jazz players will use. Some jazz players will use very hard reeds and pinch very hard on the mouthpiece to be able to achieve the kind of back pressure that they need to play really loudly. I tend to go for a less resistant setup so that I can play very open on the mouthpiece. And I play with a double lip embouchure. And I started doing that when I was really young for no particular reason. But that I thought it would get me away from being really biting into the mouthpiece, really bitey and making grooves in the top, because I was really, digging into the tops of the mouthpieces. So I thought, okay, something's going wrong here. I'm biting too hard. So I roll my top lip over my teeth here, and so after doing that, I did that that's all for classical, but for a classical approach as well. But one thing that I found that I really like to do when playing jazz music is to change the angle of kind of address with the clarinet, like with the audience, and this is a body language thing as well as a sound thing, right? But if you think of like a classical posture, you're kind of holding you're kind of holding the clarinet in at kind of a 45 to like, I don't know, smaller, maybe 30-degree angle in here, and you're kind of trying to create this really rich, bubbly, dark sound. Now with jazz, and when you're playing, especially if you're playing in like trad groups or you're playing swing style stuff, you'll see a lot of people holding the clarinet out like this. I don't go that far, but I hold it somewhere in here. And that helps me with my articulation to get a kind of really soft. I don't want a really pokey staccato. I want kind of a little thuddy, like the tongue is just kind of scraping against the reed, and I kind of move my tongue off to the side of the reed a little bit like that, so that it's not like if you're tonguing, you might think of the reed here, and you might think of your tongue here and hitting the reed like this. Mine's kind of going off to the side like that and just kind of flicking the tongue, like flicking the reed like that. So you can get a really fast, light articulation that's not too heavy. So that's the angle kind of logistically helps with that. But the other thing that the angle does is it paints the picture of the clarinet as a kind of a leading instrument. Sidney Bechet used to hold the clarinet out like that. Benny Goodman used to hold the clarinet out like that. And you can't underestimate the visual appearance of certain instruments in where they get placed in roles in the band. So I kind of think of, a very kind of forward-facing address and kind of a light articulation. So I'm going. And you can hear all my articulations are really kind of a little bit soft, but still the objective is to do a little bit very quickly.